Hi, thank you so much for being here and being in the booth and coming to the show. So let's kick it off. Why don't you tell me about yourself and your company?
Yeah, so thank you so much for having us. It's really great to be here at IFPA this year, and just feeling on the energy of what's happening here is just fantastic. My name is Dan. I am with Copeland. We are a in-transit temperature monitoring provider. So our primary items are used for refrigerated trailers that will show you where a truck is, what the temperature is inside that trailer, what the relative humidity of the trailer and the product are, and then when the back door of a trailer is open or shut, to provide the supplier, the end user, whether that's a retailer, a food service company, or even logistics provider, access to what's happening and validation that product that's being accepted and sold to consumers is safe to eat at the end location. So we work with a variety of companies in the produce space to give them that level of visibility that they prior did not have, so that they can potentially counteract a claim before it happens. In the event of a temperature spike, for instance, they could receive a email or push notification to their phone saying, "Hey, my berries are supposed to be between 32 and 40. They've hit 41. So what do we do about that? What SOPs do we have in place as an organization to counteract a problem and get that from 41 back down to an acceptable range, so that we can save a full truckload of berries and not have the shipment arrive spoiled to our customer, which will put us in a bad light? Or if it's past the point of recovery, how do we get a recovery load out faster so that we're not losing that shelf space at the retailer and losing it to a competitor that might have product to them faster?" And then on the reverse end, for our end user providers, like whether it be a retailer, a food service chain, a food service distributor, how do we validate that the product that we're accepting is not only going to be safe for consumers to eat, but how can we extend the shelf life of the product that we're buying? Because the shelf life is so important at these retailers that we work with, because it's money on the table, and the loss of product that isn't sold is so dramatic. So if we can just add a day of shelf life by providing temperature data that's flat, and we say, "Hey, these are the providers of yours that are going above or below range, or are fluctuating just because of the set point of a trailer, or just because of how they're configuring the trailers going outbound," and we can just get that into a more acceptable range, then we can dramatically increase the shelf life of product that's sitting at those retail locations. So the value of the product that we sell is in the physical bit of hardware. It's really in the data that it provides. It's really in how do either end users or shippers or even supply chain providers leverage that data to make better long-term decisions. So that's the basics of the products that we sell, but the essentials of it is the physical bit of hardware, which is a either single-use or reusable, very small device. They're about the size of a deck of cards, and they go inside the device, inside of the trailer.
So do
And
you own that or do you sell that and
yeah,
they own it or you
yeah.
own it?
So we manufacture and sell those
Okay.
devices. So we build the device, we ship the device to a origin location, and then the origin location is putting the device on the trailer to share the data with either themselves, with end users, or with their supply chain providers, so that they can have data transparency in the supply chain.
So it sounds like anyone could be your customer in the whole supply chain, right?
Yeah, we service so many different spaces. I mean, there's days that I will fly out to somewhere in the United States, usually in the Midwest, because that used to be my territory, and I have a lot of customers out there. And you'll start the day meeting with a pharmaceutical provider, have an afternoon meeting with a produce grower, and then go to a 3PL at the end of the day. So I would say I'm a master of none, because I
Wow.
meet with a lot of people. They know much more about their business. We deal with a lot of industries that can leverage. I mean, you could be a qualified customer of buying a recorder that we sell if you care about the location of your trailer, if you care about the security of your trailer, if you care about the humidity or the temperature. It doesn't have to be all four. It could be any of those. If I'm having a supply chain risk that I want to mitigate, why would I not want more data? So that's what we're just trying to provide.
So is there ever a case where like a retailer would be your customer and a packer shipper would be your customer and then they've
Yeah.
got two devices on the same truck?
So we try to limit that, but that is a situation that could happen. It's all about, how do I want to digest the data, right? So there are some end users that say, "I want a quick and streamlined way to digest data, and I want it not with all the bells and whistles, because I want to lower my cost of purchasing devices, but I want it to be streamlined quickly. And they typically buy a device that we sell called the Go Wireless, which is, think of it like a clock and a thermometer put together, and it records time and temperature, stores it in the device, and then it connects wirelessly to a box installed to the DC and sends data to that box. And that box sends an email to the receiving crew saying, hey, this is what the temperature was in transit. Should we accept or reject that load? And they take a look and they analyze the data before they start unloading the truck. Now, that's great for the end user because they're getting data quickly. They're getting it concisely because it's just picking up on that box. But as far as a shipper goes, it's reactive in the sense that they're not seeing the data unless there is a problem. When that email is generated, the temperature went above or below range, and then they get the email about it. So some shippers elect to say, hey, we're going to do this because this falls in line with what our mutual customers in the end user space say that they want, because this is how they want to digest the data. But we might want to digest the data a different way. So we're going to comply with what they want by putting a Go Wireless on, but also put one of the real-time trackers on so that we can have live visibility of the shipment and our own control of the data so that we can elect to make decisions to mitigate those risks.
That's amazing. So you've got all this data, and it's data that you're collecting, so it's clean data and data, packaged in a very good way. What now in, the days of LLMs and AI, what are you learning and what kind of trends do you see that weren't possible before?
Yeah. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to take data that is in a bit of a singular fashion where you get a load. Is it safe to accept or reject? We have the temperature graph. And if it was safe to accept with all of the location data and with the temperature data, we're pretty much moving on from that. And we bought a cheap assurance policy to say that we are going to be able to accept this load. But we're taking the more whole view of the data and we're combining them into scorecards. So either shippers or end users can go into our website and say, I want to look at the last 6 months of data. And I want to see either how are we doing as a shipper to all of our end users, and let me see if there's any outliers in those end users. Where is there one end user that we're consistently shipping to, but for some reason, the temperature has been above or below what we feel to be acceptable more frequently than the norm. We can do that as well for carriers that they're selecting. So we could say, okay, you're selecting a carrier base of 20 different providers. And how is each provider doing comparative to the other as far as on-time ratio, as far as holding a consistent mean kinetic temperature, average temperature in transit, so that when you're going to go select contracts in the future, or bid for lanes, how are we doing so less relationship built and more data driven? So on the shipper side, that's what they're leveraging that data for. On the receiver side, they're seeing long-term trends. Like, is there a long-term trend that our temperature increases on our products over the summer? Is there any fluctuations that happen seasonally in our products with temperature? Or is there any outliers to the norm, a supplier or a shipper, or just one supplier's origin location that says, hey, we're consistently having problems with this origin location. Let's go out there and have a conversation with our supplier to find out what's happening so that we can receive better product that is going to be on the shelf for longer because it will mutually benefit us. It's really about brand protection because even if I'm a supplier, if I put my brand on that product, I'm expecting that brand to be consistent across every retailer that I'm selling into. And consumers expect that as well. If I'm buying a branded product, I want that to be the same every time I buy that brand. But if it's different by any means, and that difference can happen just because of a few degrees in temperature where the quality will go down, suppliers may lose faith in that brand. And we're trying to mitigate that loss of faith because it's extremely important to have that brand be protected. Yeah.
If you have a customer, that kind of data package and analytics, does that come with everyone do they get that? Yeah. All your customers get that?
All of our customers get it. So
that's super important.
Oh, it's super important because we're trying to add value. When we enter into contracts with some of our customers or sell our product, we want them to leverage both sides, like leverage the ability to go on a one-by-one shipment basis and say, I am going to protect each of my shipments individually and have alerts on any shipments that may be outliers so that we can pull them back in. And then also have that holistic, larger view of the supply chain. So it comes with our costs every time. We want customers to use both of it so that they see the value in the products that we sell.
So what are the issues specific to produce that you've noticed, the things that are different?
Produce is so unique, and every commodity is relatively unique in how it's sold, how it's packaged, and floral as well, because I know this is a large floral show as well. We're out of South Florida, right? And most of the florals coming out of Miami for the entire United States. We have relatively good relationships down at the terminals in Miami to be able to give them that data that they're looking for. Typically what we're seeing, and I'll start with floral and I'll go back to your question about produce, is typically what we're seeing with floral, especially during the summer months in South Florida, is that your reefer units or your refrigerated trailers are working exceptionally hard to keep the climate zone inside of the trailer wildly different than what that South Florida climate is outside. Because we're getting product in on either a container or air freight into Miami, and then we're putting it into another trailer, and then we're sending it out. And there's so much risk involved with that. In moving product from a plane onto the tarmac, onto a trailer, and then moving that forward. And having to have the fight against that outside environment, especially in southern locations, like in Florida and in Southern California. And then I'll get into McAllen in a second, because we do a lot of work out of the locations in Southern Texas, McAllen, Laredo, that are pulling LATAM produce in, that have a similar problem to that, where they are trying to fight outside items that they can't control. We can't control the weather, nor can they. When they're shipping out of those locations outbound, it's typically the part of transit that is the most risky, because you're going from one climate to an entirely different climate as you travel north, or usually traveling north, because if you're in those locations, that's where you're going. That's what we've seen for that. And it's the opposite that happens for some of our northern growers, whether it's stone fruit. A stone fruit shipment, like a cherry shipment. We do a lot of business for cherries out of Yakima during that very short cherry season.
Very short.
And I'm sure that you're very aware of how important that cherry season is for those suppliers. And cherries are such a high value commodity that can separate one supplier from being a true apples to apples commodity to, hey, we can provide you high quality cherries for a short period of year and have a competitive advantage for doing that. So we do a lot of those shipments, but when you're shipping a truckload of that value outbound going south, it's the opposite. It's the latter end of the shipment, because we're going south and we're consistently having that reefer stress harder and harder to keep the inside of the trailer cooler than what it would be in a more cool and tempered environment like the Yakima area. So we see a lot going on with produce right now. And one of the shifts that we see happening is that our industry is a over 80-year-old industry, where there were paper strip charts that started back in the 1950s that just, are you familiar with those, where they pull the scroll out, and yet some of those are still sold today. We don't sell them though, because we want the data quality to be as clean and good as possible. And we've taken our product line to be completely digital. So all of our products may be digital. Now, we have seen a shift in many of the produce suppliers, and it could be anywhere in value. It could be something like a cherry supplier, like I was just talking about, or something that the load value is significantly less. We've been using data loggers, like what I was talking about, where I'm using a simple time and temperature recorder, a more reactive solution. And we want to make a change towards proactive monitoring, where we want to be able to have that live data so that we can take that live data and mitigate risk before it becomes a larger problem.
So how many times have you been to the show personally?
Well, there were the COVID years, so I got to knock those out.
Yeah.
But this is either my 6th or 7th. I started at the 2017 New Orleans show. I'm not sure if you were at that one.
I was not.
Okay.
I was before my time.
Yeah. So I started at that show, and I've cycled around between Orlando, Anaheim, and Atlanta since then. So it is my favorite show of the year. It really is. the
Good
show.
of you to say, but I agree.
It's the show because I spent a lot of time flying around the country to meet with many of the people that come to the show. And it's kind of like a homecoming to me, where all these people that I see on an individual basis, like the happy hour last night you guys put out there, it's amazing how many people you run into that you just see sporadically during the year, all in one place. So kudos to you guys for what you do.
Great. Well, thanks for being here. Thanks for sponsoring the booth. And it was really great to learn more about you and your company. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Coming up, Vonnie sits down with Katherine Sizov to share her insights.
So great to have you here at the show and here in the podcast booth. Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I'm going to turn over to you and introduce yourself and talk about your company, and then we'll just have a little dialogue.
My name is Katherine. I'm the CEO of Strella. What we do at Strella is predict the shelf life of produce items to make better decisions all across the food supply chain.
That's very succinct.
I like to keep it short,
Yeah, that's not even an elevator speech. That's like the first floor of the elevator speech.
Yeah, I'm like, first I need to know, like, do you even care? And then, I can dive into it if you want.
Exactly. So tell us how you do that.
Yeah, so we measure a combination of different things. So we measure things like CO2 respiration, ethylene production. Ethylene is a plant hormone that different types of produce emit as they ripen. And we couple these things with machine vision and then some other supply chain data to basically predict the shelf life of different types of produce at different points in the supply chain. And then we can use that to make all sorts of different types of decisions. So, for example, we monitor apples in long-term controlled atmosphere storage. So apples can be stored for up to a full year before they get sent to a retailer. And so we can predict which apples are going to last longer in storage and which ones need to be packed out first in order to optimize packouts and reduce food waste or shrink. We also do a ton of banana ripening. So we deploy our devices into banana ripening rooms and automate the ripening process. Right now, ripening is very much an art, not a science. So every time we, as a nerdy company, hear that, we're like, okay, can we turn it into a science? And so, got into banana ripening.
Very cool. I was just talking to a blueberry company recently, and they're looking, because blueberries are getting shipped so far, and they're also looking at potential of storage. Have you looked at blueberries at all? I don't know what the gas exchange, I don't even know what goes on with them, but
yeah, for sure. So a lot of produce items respire, all of them do. So CO2 respiration is certainly something we can measure. And berries are also susceptible to ethylene. So any type of berry item that's been exposed to a lot of ethylene is going to have a lot shorter shelf life.
What would people do about that? If they're like, okay, we want to store this for longer, so refrigeration probably slows that down. Is there anything else that could be done with the berry to slow it down?
Yeah, temperature is, of course, the most important one. Scrubbing, so ensuring proper environmental conditions for optimal storage is important. And then also just knowing that you have a problem. So if you know that there's an issue with a container, if you know that you've had ethylene exposure in a certain part of your warehouse or distribution center, you can do something about it as long as you know.
What's the interface with your product? What does someone do if they use your product?
Yeah, so for example, with our banana ripening platform, we interact with the QC teams on a daily basis. So traditionally, the way banana QC works is you're doing a lot of really qualitative metrics, and it requires a ton of training. So a banana ripener will peel the peel from the pulp and see how that feels, or look at the latex flow in a banana, and then use all these qualitative metrics to understand how ripe the banana is. Instead of doing that, what we do is we hand folks a tablet, and now they just have to snap a picture of the bananas so that we can see what the external appearance looks like. And then we couple that with our sensor data to understand the respiration of the bananas in a ripening room, to understand how they're producing ethylene. And we can understand the ripeness of a banana without having any of that training whatsoever. We then feed all of that maturity data into automatically adjusting the conditions of a ripening room. So instead of a person going in and changing the temperature of stubborn Ecuadorian fruit to 65 degrees, we're now doing that all automatically. So there doesn't need to be a person really babysitting the bananas, if you will.
So in order to use your technology and your products, you have to have a tablet, you need a sensor installed, software, I assume. And what are the other pieces of it?
Yeah, so we've got a little sensor. It's about the size of a brick, can kind of go anywhere. It's wireless, battery powered, so we put those wherever needed. Those guys are interfacing into our cloud using an IoT network. And then the actual user uses a tablet to interact with the data.
And what gave you the idea? How'd you get started on this?
I was supposed to get a PhD in neuroscience, but I just couldn't sit behind a lab bench. I wanted to do something real, and there's nothing.
I can relate to that.
Yeah. There's nothing more real than the produce industry. I actually remember reading that 40% of food is wasted before it's consumed. And at the time, kind of had two feelings. One, guilt, because I'm like, I don't even know where my food comes from. I'm a college student. I just go to the store and peaches come from stores, I guess, So started just diving down a rabbit hole of, the rabbit hole of the produce industry. And then also just 40% is such a big number, I think there's a lot of finger pointing associated with food waste, but ultimately, it is a big challenge. And things like technology, I think, are a great remedy for it.
Yeah. So what stage is the company in now? You're raising some funds and kind of talk about funding and then also customers. You've got some new customer acquisition, I understand.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, we are a post-Series A company. So we're a venture capital-backed startup. We've raised around $20 million to date. We have a mix of different customers. So we work with a lot of apple and pear packers. So folks like Rice Fruit Company, for example, out in Pennsylvania. And then we also work with retailers such as Wakefern and Albertsons as well.
So when you go to talk to retailers, what's the difference of your pitch to them as opposed to your pitch to producers?
I think the pitch is always kind of the same, which is maintaining good quality items. So everyone cares about bringing the best possible produce to their customers and reducing shrink. So shrink for a packer could mean improving packouts or decreasing decay in their rooms. For a retailer, shrink is shrink, right? So we just measure those numbers.
And how, I'm trying to think when I first met you, I think it was before COVID, you were at the show. Do you remember? How long have you been coming to the show?
It's been, I think my fourth or fifth year now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, gosh, it's funny. I thought it was longer than that, but yeah, well, I think I met you the first times you were at the show. So
yeah.
What do you get out of coming to the show and what do you expect to get this year?
Everyone is here, which is so nice. I feel like I spend all my time flying to different places all across the US just to get one meeting, but it's so nice to have everybody all in one place. And I also think everyone here today is open to new technologies and looking at their supply chains in a new and different way.
Do you think that's changed since you've been doing this?
I think there has been quite a bit of change. I think optimization is a big thing. Everyone's always thinking about how they can do better. I also just think that, when you come in on any random day into someone's life, we're all bogged down with the daily operational tasks. And IFPA is a really great place to kind of take a couple steps back and think about big picture stuff.
Do you set up meetings before you come or?
Yeah, totally. I think that's the best way to do a conference is set up meetings.
Yeah. It takes a little while to learn that, because if you just think you might run into someone, you might, and you will have those people that serendipity and it's great you ran into them, but the people you really want to see, it's best if you can set something up.
Totally. I like the combination of planning and then getting serendipity. I feel like you get lucky when you plan,
That's a great statement. That's great. Anything else do you think we should know about your product or what you're doing?
I think just going back to the food waste topic, I think it's one that's almost in some ways politicized, right? Because I think people are kind of pointing fingers all the time, hey, why aren't farmers reducing food waste? Someone should be doing this better, And I think that no one wants waste to happen, right? It's expensive. It doesn't make sense for ROI. And so just understanding why that's happening. And part of that, I think, is just a lack of visibility or a lack of technology or, archaic processes that could be improved. And so I certainly think that everyone in this industry is trying their absolute darndest to not have any kind of waste or inefficiency in the system. But yeah, things like technology can help cover that gap.
So what do you feel like you're competing with?
Honestly, status quo is a really big thing in this industry, being totally transparent. I think food is a very old industry. It's existed for as long as humans have existed. And so sometimes rethinking a process that has been around for hundreds of years or 80 years can be challenging.
Or just doing nothing, right?
Yeah. Also true. Yeah, doing nothing is easy.
Yeah. Is there some technology or ways of doing things that are new that compete with you, or do you kind of fit into what people are doing?
I think the problem area is so big. There's not a silver bullet for anything, right? I think sometimes startups go into a space and they're we can solve every problem all at once. I think there's just a lot of different ways to tackle a problem, and the solution is a complement, a suite of offerings. So there are, for example, post-harvest chemicals that are applied to produce items to extend their shelf life. We work with them. There are better demand forecasting tools that also help reduce waste. There are even companies that work on, distribution of imperfect items, right? So I think all of those things in combination will help solve the problem overall.
I feel like every conversation I have to bring up AI because everyone's bringing up AI. But as you look at the supply chain and, maybe it's not AI specifically, but more just having better data, collecting better data, using large language models to figure things out. How do you see that helping with your product? And how do you see that helping the supply chain going forward?
Yeah, we use AI in a lot of our ripening models for sure. I think it's a really useful tool, especially when you do have a large data set. I think in produce, the challenge is having a data set in general. So we're really focused on producing like an ethylene data set or a respiration data set that we can then use to train a model. But yeah, unfortunately in produce, there's just not a lot of information that we can natively grab. And so we have to create these data sets from scratch.
And are people pretty open to that?
I think so. I think if it solves a problem, then yeah, generally speaking, yes. I also think everyone, like you said, is kind of fascinated by AI. And so they're like, okay, well, if I can, try using it in my supply chain or in my process, why not?
Yeah. Oh, that's good. I like hearing that because I think people are all over the place about it. It's like, I'm afraid of it. I should be doing it. I'm afraid of not using it. And so I think the more use cases, so you can go in and say, this is the data you need to collect. This is what we're going to do with your data. This is how it's going to benefit you. That just gives people something real instead of them feeling like I need a data strategy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I definitely don't know if I'm a little bit cynical on hey, we just need to use this for using its sake,
Yeah, exactly.
But if there's an actual application, it makes sense.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. And it's good to see you. We should catch up. I'll come over and catch you on the floor.
I would love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Coming up, Vonnie sits down with Blake Wilbur to share his insights.
Hi, it's great to have you here. Thanks for being willing to step up and be on the podcast. I appreciate it. So I will let you introduce yourself and your company and a little background, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, my name is Blake Wilbur. I'm the Western Sales Manager for Kula Bio. We've been around since 2018. We're a Harvard-based company selling a nitrogen-fixing bacteria. And I've been seeing really good results throughout the Central Valley and East Coast as well.
Excellent. And you're in the Future Tech. You have a booth in the Future Tech area. So anyone that's listening to this, what's your space? I don't know the number. They can find you.
T1116, I believe.
Oh, excellent. So for anyone that's listening to this afterwards, we have a Future Tech space. If any of you startups listening to this, it's a really great way to come for free the first year and be able to have a small booth just to get an introduction to the show and to the industry and get your product out there. So I'm really happy that Kula Bio is taking advantage of this year.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. Talk a little bit more about what crops you're working on and what kind of results you're seeing.
Yeah, so we're on the East Coast as well on the West Coast. We're doing a lot of work in berries, leafy greens, as well as specialty crops, as well as perennial crops such as almonds, pistachios, citrus, and blueberries. So we've seen a lot of great results on both. Obviously, on some of the microgreens and leafy greens, you can see a little bit more of a reaction and a quicker turnaround. So growers are seeing good results, so they have enough confidence in using it for some of their other crops for their perennials. So we're seeing really good results across the board.
So when you go, I had Secretary Ross on this morning, and she has a really soft spot in her heart for different kinds of biological solutions. And we were talking a lot about people have been burned, and so there's not a lot of trust. So how do you overcome that barrier when you go talk to growers?
Yeah, great question. So coming from a fourth generation family farm, I kind of understand a little bit about the snake oil verbiage that's out there. So knowing that there's a lot of different microbials and biologicals out there, what we like to do is do proof of concept trials with the growers as well as the CROs. So building that grower confidence with their fertility on their growers or soil type throughout the farm. So things have been working really well. So building that grower confidence as well as with the channel distributors and then working with some of the boards
in certain crops, so they can kind of have a vision on what we're doing and our ultimate goal, which is to kind of reduce the synthetic nitrogen.
So talk about the different products you have. You have an organic product and then the non-organic products.
Yep,
So
we have a Kula In, which is our organic pipeline flagship, as well as we have a Kula Next, which is our conventional. So same strain, Xanthobacter autotrophicus, very hardy bacteria. So we've been seeing a lot of good results in cyanide climate soils versus more clay loam. So things have been looking good from organic standpoint as well as conventional.
So with the organic line, if they were to convert, they would just use Kula In. And with the conventional, are they using fertilizer and the product, or how's that going?
Great question. So a lot of our growers are doing the pre-plant first, just because we're a liquid formulation. So as of right now, we're getting applied through the drip system because we work best on the roots. So a lot of growers are going in with their pre-plant organic application, then kind of spoon feeding us throughout the whole season, about 4 to 6 applications depending on the crop. And then conventional, we've been doing some trials starting in the greenhouse transplant houses, as well as in the transplant water, as well as through the drip as well. So lots of growers have been buying into the technology and trying different ways to apply it in their farming fertigation system. So it's been fun.
So how does adoption go? Like, unfortunately for you, you're not going to go and they're going to say, I'm going to convert my whole farm to using this product. So how do they usually adopt over the years?
Yeah. So what we like to do is personally, I like to do 3 to 5 trials. It's tough just doing one single field. As you know, there's a lot of variabilities when it comes to farming, especially with different soil types and Mother Nature. So some growers if they see good enough results on their few fields, what they'll do is basically put us through the trial phase the first year, and then usually they'll put us in their budget for next year if they see enough. Some growers have seen similar products as far as biologicals, so they like seeing 2 to 3 year studies just to get more comfortability with it. So it's just working with the right system and strategy in place so they can get more comfortable with the product and get more confidence in it on a quicker turnaround, so we can go to the market quicker.
So on the sales side, I know you're doing a lot of trials and looking at a lot of different crops, but what crops do you have the most sales in right now?
Yeah, I would say on the coast side, we're pretty heavily in the strawberry business right now. In the Central Valley, we're working pretty heavily in the processing tomatoes, but we're also getting a lot of interest in garlic and onions as well. But as well as on top of that, we've been getting a lot of interest in almonds and pistachios. So as you know, growers are diversified and they have their different strategic plans. So I would say those crops are mainly the most, but we've been getting a lot of interest for other crops like asparagus and hemp, and a lot of interesting crops that we're looking forward to playing with this coming fall, winter, or spring.
So is there any reason to think, so if it's working in strawberries, why wouldn't it work in asparagus?
Exactly. So roots are roots, and happy roots, happy shoots.
Yeah. And are the application rates about the same, or what do you have to, when you say you're going to look at another crop, what do you have to study to see?
Yeah, great question. So what we like to do is to work with the grower and or consultant and just get the nitrogen timings. We like to ask how much nitrogen units they're applying and kind of just go from there. For perennial crops, it kind of just depends on the season as well. As some of these 35 baby urean crops, quicker turnaround. So it just kind of depends, where we have some growers doing 2 applications, and then we have some growers going up to 6 to 8 applications. It just kind of depends on the crop cycle. But at the end of the day, a lot of growers are seeing really good results after the 2nd and 3rd application, where they're starting to buy in pretty quickly. So we're pretty excited about that.
So if someone was interested in your product, would they, if they're on the West Coast, they contact you, or?
Yeah, no. So we have a Fresno representative named Noah Riley from Fresno. We also have a representative in Santa Maria covering the coast, Isidro Munoz. And then we also have another rep down in Yuma, Arizona, Jeremiah Wooldridge. And then we also have a team out in Florida as well, doing a lot of berries and leafy green work as well.
Oh, great. That's expansion. Anything else about the product that you want to tell us?
Yeah, so our ultimate goal here at Kula Bio is to mainly decrease the synthetic nitrogen fertilizer applied. So what we've been doing is working with growers on doing a boost application as well as a replacement. So things have been looking fairly well. The product is very pure, Harvard-based company. So a lot of growers are pretty optimistic on trying, as you know, new products. So getting that year in and year out consistent results has really been working well. So hitting the commercial market has been really fun, just because the product seemingly seems to be working. So we're excited to keep the pedal to the metal and expand in different territories.
Yeah, it's always nice to be selling a product that people like.
Yep, it makes our lives easier. So
this is maybe out of your area, but I've noticed a lot more ads and just more promotion that you all are doing, and it looks really good. So I'm happy to see that, because I think, especially here on the West Coast, it took a while for things to kind of get going. And so I think you've, obviously with the team that you have now and getting people out here, I think things are really starting to roll. So congratulations on that.
No, thank you. And as you know, people like name brands, so we're doing our best to put our name out there and get just kind of buy into the community as well. So we've been working really well with AgriFluence. Nicole Wurzel has done a really good job in putting our name out there and helping us out in a lot of the videos. So shout out to her, and so
Great.
We'll keep doing what we're doing.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being in Future Tech and coming up here and talking to me, and best of luck to you.
Yeah, thank you. And if you guys have any questions, please follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn at Kula Bio.
Great.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks.